We're live. What's going on? We are back for another week of fights. We got lucky this week because we have a UFC card that is really not good in any way, shape, or form, outside of maybe one or two fights. But we do have Fury and Usyk, which is going to be a really interesting fight. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to discuss, we're going to elaborate and touch a little bit on the UFC card, and we're also going to get into Fury and Usyk a little bit, which is a really good heavyweight fight. A lot of people have been waiting for this, and I'm not going to make an official prediction. I'll do a really short video near the end of the week, my official prediction, but I do want to bring up some points about how I think the fight can go either way. Interesting week last week. We did good. We had another positive week. I did a review video on that. If you guys want to check that out, go over there. We elaborate on a lot of things now. We talk about a little bit of politics. We talk about sports. We talk about things that are going on during the week. And you may agree with me. You may not agree with me. I just speak my truth. News today, though, before we do get into sports, we have Eric Adams of New York wants to, I shouldn't say approved, he wants to have illegal immigrants be lifeguards in New York City. So that's basically the new thing now. So we have over 100,000 homeless people in New York City. We have 44,000 of them being children. We have over 100,000 people a year being released from prison. And we have, what else? And we got about 100,000 felons in New York City, all Americans, all documented, all citizens, but he wants to give lifeguard programs to illegal immigrants, which makes absolutely no sense. You would think that maybe they would come up with maybe a work release program for people that are getting out of prison that maybe do qualify, or maybe some homeless people, or opening it up to felons and stuff like that. But apparently the Democrats and Eric Adams have a way to keep illegal immigrants in New York City and actually invite more in with a proposition like this, because he claims that they are good swimmers. So that's very interesting. I'm curious to see how that pans out. Hopefully it doesn't pan out. I think it's a ridiculous thing. I mean, just the word illegal doesn't make any sense. You're giving an illegal immigrant a job with Parks and Recreation, a lifeguard program where you have all these people that need jobs in New York City. You have people getting out of prison that did their time, that deserve maybe a second chance, that could be on a mandated work release program that can work for the lifeguards in New York City. So there's other ways to skin that cat, that you're actually helping our people, other than giving them to illegal immigrants just so you can get some votes come voting time. So that's my rant about that. What else do we got going on? We had the Mike Tyson face-off with Jake Paul this week, the other day actually. And it was interesting because I watched it with different goggles, right? A lot of people look at it and they just keep saying Mike Tyson facing off with Jake Paul. The one thing about Mike Tyson back in the day, and I was going to do a video on this, and maybe I still might edit the two different face-offs from like years ago until now, is that Mike Tyson back in the day, he did one thing. He beat you before the fight even started. He had you beat before you came into the ring. He had a very Sonny Liston style intimidation factor to him. There was no joking around. There was no shaking hands. There was no hugging. It was literally just a stone cold stare. And near the end of his career, it got very violent in terms of the way he spoke about you and about your family, and about eating your children and stuff like that. So he was just a very, very stoic, violent-minded guy. In this face-off, he was very inviting. He was hugging Jake Paul. He was laughing. He was making believe he was hitting him in the stomach. He was shaking his hand. Just a completely different guy. So we're going to be talking a lot more about the build-up of this fight and what an entertainment sham it is. Come closer to the fight. I'm actually hoping it doesn't happen. I got to be honest with you, because it's almost like I can totally see a situation where this is going to be like a majority draw or something stupid like that. But we move on to this week. This is the week we want to talk about. So first I want to discuss a little bit about the fights. We're going to break down some of these fights. I'm going to talk about just kind of the fights that I like in this, and then we're going to jump over to Tyson Fury and Usyk. So the main event of this card obviously is Murphy versus Barboza. This is actually a pretty good fight. When you look at Murphy, I see a guy who reminds me a lot of, almost not as good, I would say a B to C level, a C level, C plus level, Leon Edwards type of guy. Very calculated in his approach. He's got a good athletic ability. There's a lot of things that he can do that he doesn't pull the trigger on. He only pulls the trigger when he really needs to, and that's a predicated, calculated striker. Calculated fighter, I should say. And if you look at his overall record, this guy's 13-0. He beat some decent competition: Coulibaly, Santos, Americani, De Silva. Ricardo Hamo. So this guy wins. Despite his low output and despite him not being a super fan-friendly fighter, the guy does find ways to win fights. But he's not beating ultra-high caliber guys. He's beating good guys, but he's not beating ultra-high caliber guys. He's taking a guy in Edson Barboza where you got to wonder, when is this guy's floor going to drop out from under him? This guy knows nothing but wars. But he continues to defy Father Time. I mean, he really, really does. Like, we talk about all these guys. Like, I sent a tweet out earlier this week about Jim Miller. 45 UFC fights. He's never missed weight once. I mean, that's just professionalism at its highest. That's respecting the sport to its highest. And this is a guy, too, who has shown the ability. But we're always talking about the Jim Millers. Jim Miller at his age. And I get it, because he's got so many fights under his belt. He's been there. But we tend to forget about the guys like the Edson Barbozas and stuff like that have been there for a long time, who's been on all these wars. And, yeah, he's had his ups and downs in his career, but he's still super dangerous, and he's still winning fights, and he's still fighting at a high level. There were a lot of fights as of late that this guy should have lost, that a lot of people picked him to lose. The Sadiq Usyk fight is one of them. A lot of people thought that Sadiq was going to be too much for him. That was an absolute war, and Sadiq couldn't keep up with him. Billy Quarantillo, another one. Fight where a lot of people thought he was going to lose. They thought Billy Quarantillo's cardio, his forward pressure was going to be too much for Barboza. Wasn't the case. His biggest Achilles heel in his entire career was his grappling. If you were able to take him down and hold him down, even though he does have a good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game, there was a path there for you to take away the striking. You put a striker like him on his back, the kicks don't mean nothing no more, the strikes don't mean nothing no more. That just nullifies everything. He will get up. He is durable. He's hard to submit. There are things about Edson Barboza that you're just not going to hold him there. But this is also a guy who finds ways to win, and he's been in there with everybody. You got Leron Murphy, who's undefeated, so you got to wonder when that was going to go. You have Murphy, who's fighting the best fighter he's ever fought. You have Murphy, who has never been 5 rounds. And you have Barboza, who's done all of this. He's lived in 5 rounds. This is a step down in competition for him. He's been in these wars and came back. He's lost. There's nothing that Murphy's going to show him that he has not seen. The biggest question here is not, is Edson Barboza good enough to beat him? Because we know he is. We know he's the better fighter. It's, when is that floor going to drop out? When is Edson Barboza going to have that performance? Because he doesn't even know. You do not know until you step into the ring or you step into the cage if you just don't have that no more. If you're not firing on all cylinders, the spark plugs, your fuel injectors just aren't clean. You don't know that until you're in there. Your response times are off. Like, you'll just one day walk into the cage and you're old. And it happens to a lot of fighters. So can it happen here? Yes. I just don't think this is the spot here. I think this is the spot where Murphy probably takes his first L. It's a learning experience for him. There's really no harm, no foul in this loss for him. If he does lose, it's Edson Barboza. And Edson Barboza keeps trucking along. And then we wonder, how much longer does he have? When is the bottom going to fall out? I just don't think it's here. I really, really don't. I think Barboza is going to be a little bit too much for him. So I'm going to go Barboza here, and I'm going to go Barboza inside the distance. I think that he has a good opportunity to possibly finish him here. Next fight is Chaos Williams versus Carlson Harris. This is a really interesting matchup, a stylistic matchup, I should say. I was never high on Chaos Williams. Never liked him coming in. I always thought he was just like this barbaric move forward striker, had good heavy hands, pretty good durability, decent cardio. He did everything okay, but his main source of income was his power. And it stands to be true. And he's beaten some good guys. I mean, if you look at his record, he beat he beat Matt Selmelsberger, he beat Baeza, he beat Alex Morono. He's beaten some good guys, and he finished these guys. These are the guys that he actually finished. So he's doing something right. He's got a smothering way about him. He's got a very chaotic, controlled chaos about his fighting, hence the name Chaos Williams. But he's fighting a guy in Carlson Harris who is just as unchained as he is, but unchained in a much different way. His striking is very awkward looking. It does not look good in any way, shape, or form. From a guy like me coming from a boxing background, it actually looks putrid. but it works for him. He throws things from every odd angles. He throws things with rhymes and reasons. And really all he wants to do at the end of the day is he wants you to somehow get into a clinch with him. He wants you to give him the opportunity to snatch up your neck or take you to the ground. And that's where his income is made. So, you have two guys in a situation where Chaos Williams is going to want to keep space. He's going to not want to crash the pocket. And if he crashes the pocket, he's not going to have to get out. Chaos Williams does have a tendency to crash the pocket and stay in the pocket, fight in the clinch. That's something you don't want to do with Carlston Harris. So it's really going to be a maturity moment for Chaos Williams. Did he mature? Does he realize that once you get to a certain level, you do need a blueprint? You just can't go in there and throw hands and fight. Justin Gaethje learned that. Yeah, it's all all is fun and love and war, but at the end of the day, you're a much better fighter with a blueprint. And now look at Justin Gaethje. He actually fights with a blueprint now. He's a much better fighter, even though he looks Max Holloway. Look at the track record before that. So Chaos Williams needs to show maturity in this fight. If he does not show maturity and he just comes in, he looks for a quick knockout, and he looks to swing for the fences, Carlston Harris probably might have an easy night on his hands. But Carlston Harris also, has a susceptibility of being chinny. He's been knocked out 2 times, even though it was only 1 time in the UFC, the other time on the regional circuit. He's also got some good wins. He was able, I remember when he fought Jeremiah Wells in his last fight, Jeremiah Wells hits like a ton of bricks, and he was able to kind of just utilize that funky movement to just kind of stay safe. A couple times, his chin got really, really close to being caught, but most of the time, this guy was kind of just staying off the center line, doing all this funky movement, and it paid off for him. Jared Gooden, the same thing. Athletic fighter, strong guy. He was able to kind of do the same thing with him. So he's got the ability to stay away from these big, powerful guys. But what his bread and butter is going to be is he's going to want Chaos Williams to come forward, throw a litany of shots, clinch up with him on the cage, and then he's going to be looking for a neck. So either way, I think you're either going to have a Chaos Williams knockout or a Carlston Harris submission. I'm going to lean on Chaos Williams in this fight to get it done. But like I said, like a lot of these fights on this card, I'm really not sold. I'm going to jump around with a couple more here. You know what? This is an interesting one for me, actually, believe it or not. Let's go to Carnelossi and Rodriguez. Let's jump down to the prelims here. So when you look at Pierre Rodriguez and you look at Carnelossi, they both kind of have a similar style, but don't, right? So Carnelossi is a fighter who, what she doesn't have in skill set, she makes up for physical attributes and brute strength. And that's usually the way she beats her opponents. She usually outmuscles them. She's really bricked up. If you haven't seen her before, you can Google her. You could see, how large in size she is. Not as far as like height, but I'm just saying her muscularity. And she's a bully in there. And that's what kind of makes up for her skill set, right? So when you look at Pierre Rodriguez, she kind of has that same ability. She kind of has that, but she's got a little bit more technical fundamentals behind her. She's got a little bit longer reach. I think she's going to be able to, she's the better striker. I think she's going to be able to keep her at the end of her jabs, at the end of her punches. But eventually Carnelossi is going to crash in, and that's what she does. That's how she wants to make her money. She wants to crash into the pocket. She wants to have this physical, tussle with you and see, what you could do from there. Carnelossi's takedown defense is not really that good. Now, it can be a little deceiving. When you look at her takedown defense, it says 8%. Now, 8%, obviously, that's horrendous. We all know that. But I do think that's a little inflated. I know when she fought Lupe Godinez, she was taken down 8 or 9 times in that fight. So that you get a little bit of an inflation there. And it is Lupe. I mean, Lupe, once she starts stringing her takedowns together, they're not going to stop. But ultimately, she does not have great takedown defense. And when you look at that and you look at, Rodriguez's skill set on how, yes, she can take the fight to the floor. Yes, she can keep her on the edge with her jab. If she does start frustrating her to a point where Carnelossi does have to crash in, that's where things get sloppy, and that's when Pierre Rodriguez can take her down. And once I think she gets top control, I think she can earn those minutes. So another close fight, but I do think Rodriguez should be able to edge that one out. This card, guys, this card really isn't that good of a card. It's really not that good of a card. The same thing with Melissa Gatto and Vidal. This is a fight where this really should be Melissa Gatto all day. I know the line is inflated. I don't trust Melissa Gatto all that much. I got to be honest with you, against Ariana Lipski, this is a girl who, she lost that fight for herself. I'm not taking anything away from Lipski, or Da Silva, as people call her now. I'm not taking anything away from her. She has gotten a lot better. She's looked a lot better. Her striking is slick. She's got a good little streak going. But at the end of the day, if you really watch that fight, Melissa Gatto didn't do the things that she should have done in those rounds to win that fight. She could have won that fight if she had a little bit better cage IQ. She doesn't pull the trigger all the time. She's like one of those fighters where you're watching and it's a really close round and you're calling at the screen, just do this and you'll win this round. Just do this. You 30 seconds, do this, you'll win the round. And she just doesn't do it. So she kind of lost that fight for herself, but she's fighting a girl in Vidal who really does not belong in the UFC. I mean, let's face it. She beat Ramona Pascual. I wouldn't consider her a good fighter. I consider her, a good regional fighter. I don't consider her a good UFC fighter. And she beat Rendon, who all she has is that head and arm throw. That's pretty much it. So she's 1-1 in the UFC against two girls that are just not good. I think she's up against it here against Melissa Gatto, and I know the line is a little bit inflated, but I kind of do agree with it. But she's going to have to pull the trigger because Vidal's going to push forward. She's going to put that frumpy frame on her. She's going to try to wear her weight a little bit, and if she's the more active fighter in a sloppy tussle, and she's the one moving forward, and we're yelling at the TV for Gatto, like, come on, you can't let her, get that outside foot, or you cannot let her, push the pace. These are all things that the judges are going to see. You could see a situation where Gatto drops her third in a row. I just don't see it. I think the UFC knows, like, Vidal is not long for the UFC, and I think they still are holding out a little bit of hope for Melissa Gatto. She's on a 2-fight losing streak. One more loss. She's really redlining here. So I think this is not a layup for her, but I think this is a fight where the UFC is saying, here, like, let's go. This is a fight that you really should win. So I'm going to go Melissa Gatto here, and I wouldn't be surprised if she submits her. Let's do this one. Warlley Alvarez and Magomedov, and then we're going to jump over to Tyson Fury fight. This is a fight where Warlley Alvarez, back in the day, everybody was kind of high on this guy, right? Claim to fame, submission against Kobe Covington, and then all of a sudden, this guy's career just took a header. I don't know what it was. I don't know if he just never evolved, but coming out of the gates, this dude was someone we were watching. Like, I was keeping an eye on Warlley Alvarez. Good grappling, good power. Cardio was never all that great. But now you're looking at him, and he's on a 3-fight losing streak. And it's like, where do you go from here? Like, where does he actually go from here? I don't think the UFC has any more faith in him. I think they kind of gave up on him. I think if he loses this fight, which they're probably hoping he does, it's exile time. And then on the flip side, when you look at, Magomedov, and he's in a similar boat with 2 straight losses, you got to look at who he's losing to. He lost to Chal Barajo and he lost to Sean Strickland, 2 guys that are on the top echelon of the division, right? So you're saying to yourself, all right, well, they gave him Stoltzfus in his first fight, and he won. Then they threw him right to the dogs to Strickland and Barajo. So it's almost like, yeah, man, we kind of did you dirty. We gave you a very winnable fight for your debut, and then we kind of threw you in with these 2 dogs, and we just asked you to swim, and you couldn't swim. So what we're going to do now is we don't know what we want to do with you. We don't know where you are. We don't know what caliber of fighter you actually are. So we're going to give you a name. We're going to give you a guy that still is relatively dangerous, a guy that he will threaten your neck. He will threaten you in spots, but it's a very winnable fight for you. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's on his way out. You have a 2-fight losing streak. You're not necessarily on your way out just yet, but you get a victory here, and now you're 2-2. You're safe for now. That's the way I think the matchmakers are kind of looking at this. I don't think they have any more use for Warlley Alvarez. It's not like he's this super active fighter. Magomedov is 3 fights into his UFC career, lost to 2 top guys. I'm not saying that they're holding out major hope for him, but I do think they have potential with him that he will be a better standing post than Warlley Alvarez is. So I'm going to go Magomedov in this spot. Overall, guys, this card is really, really dirty. Like it's not a good card. I mean, there's some decent fights. The Garimbo and Brahimaj fight is good. Obviously, Adrian Yanez is fighting. You know, I'm a big Adrian Yanez guy. Angela Hill, always kind of a fun fight to watch. C's brother from PFL is fighting on this card, which is an interesting fight. But I mean, overall, is this really a card that you need to staple yourself to your seat and watch? No. I'm much more interested in the Tyson Fury and Usyk fight, to be quite honest with you. I'm going to be watching both of them, but I'm not really high on this card. I don't know how much action I'm going to have on this card, to be honest. So if you want to check out my full breakdowns, my full predictions, go to the madlabmma.com. We had a great week last week. We had a great week the week before, where you're going to continue the run. Hopefully we go on a long run this time, and see what happens. Not a very confident card to be throwing your money at and 5, 6, 7, 8 units and stuff like that. But you can have some juice on certain fights. There's going to be some props that I know I'm going to like. I'm probably going to be a little bit more prop heavy than I am actually straight up on this card. But we'll take the spots that we can find and we'll play from there. All right, so what I want to do now is I just want to take a couple minutes and I want to talk about the Tyson Fury and Usyk fight. So this is a fight that everybody's been kind of clamoring for. And it's kind of weird, right? Because it's a fight where the guys have a style to them that is kind of similar. Like you have two boxers. Like that's basically what they are. They're two technical boxers. But one guy is so much bigger. You know, one guy is so much bigger. So usually you'll have situations where, we talk about the boxer and the puncher. We talk about you always go with the boxer over the puncher. And now you're in a situation where you have a guy that looks like the puncher. You got a guy in Fury who is the bigger guy, who's going to have a 7-8 inch reach advantage. Just going to look like a Goliath in there to a guy that's 225 pounds and a lot smaller than him. You would think that's the more technical striker. They're both very technical boxers. That's how Tyson Fury wins his fights. He wins his fights by being a big, nimble heavyweight, and Usyk wins his fight by he's a TikTok fighter. And I'm not talking a platform TikTok. I'm talking pendulum. Okay, and when you get a guy like Usyk, that's how he wins his fights. He's very just in and out, and he uses good head movement, and he punches off the center line. He's got a very fast moving about him, where Tyson Fury is a boxer in the sense where he's much more of a feinting fighter. He throws a lot of feints out. He works behind a stiff jab, and he moves a lot as well. But both of them have their own different styles of technique in boxing. You have one guy who's more of a pendulum fighter, and you got one guy who's more of a technical guy who's going to throw a lot of feints. So you got to wonder which one is going to leave their comfort zone, right? That's basically what this is about. And I think this is the one time in Fury's career where he's going to have to be the more physical guy in there. He's going to have to kind of play the role of, you can't be too much of a brawler in there, but you're going to have to, at some point in time, you're going to have to use your physical attributes. You're going to have to use your size to kind of bully him in there. And that's something that Tyson Fury does not usually do. He likes to work in space. He likes to utilize the real estate of the ring. He likes to utilize his jab. He showed a different part of him against, as of late. But ultimately, if you look at the landscape of his career, this is a guy who, outside of the Wilder fights, he won everything on range, on distance, on nimbleness, on speed, on just outclassing and outslicking these bigger, lumbering heavyweights. This will be the one fight where he will have to leave his comfort zone a little bit, and he will have to use his physical attributes to kind of bully Usyk. Easier said than done, though, because this is a guy who is super slick. Like I said, he is more of a pendulum fighter. But here's the thing. When you look at the reach advantage of somebody like Fury and you say, well, his main attribute from the outside is going to be utilizing that jab, keeping that up, don't let him clear space, And that's usually true for a pendulum fighter who does not have a rhythm. Pendulum fighters usually, if you look at a guy like Mike Tyson, he's a perfect example of a pendulum fighter. This is a guy, if you watch him, he's always going... But there's one solid rhythm to what he does. So you can time that. You can literally time Mike Tyson. If you're a good boxer and Tyson comes towards you with that pendulum movement, you can kind of utilize your eye, and you could kind of use time. It might take a little time, and it might be a little frustrating. It might be a little daunting because, if he does get inside on you, he's going to clip you and you're going to get hit with some power. But when you have a pendulum fighter that's one rhythm, you can kind of use your timing to kind of utilize your jab to keep him away. Usyk doesn't have one rhythm. Usyk doesn't have one speed. He doesn't have one gear. He will come towards you with one rhythm, and then he will kind of come off the center line and do all these herky-jerky movements that now you're off. Now you're saying, well, he was just doing this, now he's doing this. So finding that timing is a little bit hard, where now Tyson Fury might have to crowd him a little bit, might have to utilize his physical attributes to kind of shut that gear down. Because like I said, if you're moving forward on one guy, like Tyson used to do all the time, you just work forward in the pendulum rhythm, one rhythm, pendulum, back and forth, back and forth. What's backing that guy up is the fear of getting caught by one of Tyson's big shots. Okay, but if you don't fear that shot and you could just keep and you could just use your timing to keep him away, you're going to start catching your rhythm and he's going to start getting caught and he's going to have to change his speed. God bless you. Did you sneeze? She was about to, okay. So the thing with Usyk is, yeah, he's going to come at you with a rhythm. He's going to come at you with a pendulum, but he's also going to stop and he's going to start doing these herky-jerky movements where he's going to switch gears on you. So this is a really interesting fight. And if you look at the line is like minus 115, minus 110. I think it's swaying in the way of Usyk a little bit. And I think a lot of that has to do with the mud that was thrown at Tyson Fury in the Francis Ngannou fight. I think a lot of that money that is kind of making this close is because of that fight. Does he want it anymore? Is he taking boxing seriously anymore? But if you look at his body then to his body now, this is a completely different Tyson Fury. Like, he's in great shape. He lost a ton of weight. He's going to be a lot faster. So I think you're not even going to see not even an element of that guy that when he fought Francis. When he fought Francis, he did not take that seriously. I really do believe that he trained very lightly. He thought it was going to be easy work. He was going to come in, he was going to knock this guy out, and it was going to be over. Then as the rounds went on, he started getting a little bit tired. He started to get a little bit exhausted. So I realized, like, I can't get this guy out of here now. And then that's when the camp catches up with you. That's when the weight catches up with you. That's when the cardio catches up with you. And when you get a guy in there that's so dedicated for that camp, even though he's the underdog and even though he's so hungry, it's a hard guy to beat. It's a hard guy to get your rhythm back on when you start going back to your corner saying, shit, like, this is an even fight, or I'm down a round. You start doing things outside of your characteristics to win a fight, and that's what lost the fight for Tyson. You know, that's what ultimately was the issue with Tyson Fury. Even though he did win the fight, he got pie on his face for that fight because he should have completely worked him over. It shouldn't have even been a fight. He should have completely worked him over, just like Anthony Joshua worked him over. That should have been a carbon copy of what Anthony Joshua did to him. It should have been, that Anthony Joshua fight should have never even happened because he should have done that to Francis Ngannou. Boxing is a different animal. Like, if you look at guys like Adrian Yanez and you look at some of these guys that have really good, even Jose Aldo, the guys that got really good, they got good boxing for MMA. For MMA, they got very good boxing. You put them in a ring with a professional boxer, an average professional boxer, and they're going to get shithoused. They're going to completely get outworked and completely get out shithoused. So the thing that concerns me with Usyk now is, even though Tyson Fury has to leave his comfort zone a little bit in this fight, where Usyk doesn't, there's rumors going around that they've been really working on his plant foot and him throwing power and possibly being prepared for a pocket fight. And I think that would be a drastic mistake for him. I think what made him special is his movement, is his speed, is his off-rhythmatic pendulum ways, jumping off the center line, throwing when he's coming off the center line, throwing when he's coming back in on the center line, just being so unpredictable. I think that's what makes him such a special fighter, that if now they're working on his plant foot and they're working on, his power, and he starts buying into that I'm going to sit at 225 in the pocket with Tyson Fury and throw it. Even though Tyson Fury is not known as a huge puncher, it's just not your style. You're leaving a zone you don't have to leave. If you leave that zone, it should only be if what you usually do doesn't work. If you're coming in on him and you're jumping off the center line, you just can't seem to get to him because of his reach for whatever reason, and he's not looking to get physical with you, then yeah, you got to clear space. And he does a fantastic job with clearing space. That's one thing Usyk does. He does a phenomenal job with closing the distance and getting into like a critical damage range, which Tyson Fury doesn't want. But if he does do that and Tyson Fury does a good job bullying him around, then he's got to clear space. He's got to get back out and he has to reset. You don't want to stand in the pocket with Tyson Fury and just start exchanging with him. I just think it would be a bad game plan. So I think Fury's the one who has to leave his game plan, and I think Usyk has the option to if his game plan doesn't work. Listen, this is going to be a really close fight. Like I got to be honest with you. At one point in time, I was really sitting on Usyk's side. On another point in time, I started to sit on Tyson Fury's side after I saw that, sometimes when you lose a fight like he did with Nagant, that's what you need to put a fire under your ass. Both of these guys are 36, 37 years old. They're not getting any younger. So you don't know, like I said, what version of either guy you're going to get in there. So, I'm going to make an official prediction video in the next day or two. But I just wanted to break down the paths to victory for these guys, what they're good at, what they're not good at. This way you guys know what to look for when you're watching the fight. For those that are really not accustomed to watching boxing so much, a lot of you guys come around for more of the MMA stuff. So I wanted to give you a proper breakdown of how this fight can pan out, what their attributes are, what their paths are, because you're going to get a lot of these MMA guys coming out doing these crazy breakdowns that mean nothing. So I wanted to give you a proper breakdown of actually what you're going to be watching. So I'll talk to you later. Good luck this weekend. Hopefully we can keep our streak alive. But if I can give you guys any advice at all with a card like this, is taper back your bankroll a little bit. There's no reason. We have fights every week. There's no reason you need to throw a lot of money at this card. If anything, if you see some good props you like on the Usyk and Fury fight, the line is close enough if you want to take straight up stabs. I'd rather see you have fun with a fight like that than throw your money all around on a card like this, where you're throwing your money on a lot of coin flips. So that's it. I will talk to you guys later.